Hello, my name is Cooper Kidd, and I use they/them pronouns. Today, I will be discussing my usability in the news topic, captioning features on Zoom. Captioning features are features that allow people to read what is being spoken in movies, on video conferencing calls, and much more. For hard of hearing and deaf folks, captioning features can be a lifeline so that they know what is going on in meetings, which is why this is such a big deal. Prior to the end of February 2021, Zoom had captioning features, but they were an option only for paid users, making it inaccessible for many who need and wanted the feature. Others argued that it was unethical that Zoom made their feature paid, when other companies, such as Google, had free captioning services on their platforms. Plus, they said, why should they, being deaf and hard of hearing folks, have to pay for a service that literally makes the platform usable for them? So let's start out with a quick introduction. So by this point in the pandemic, we've all likely heard of Zoom. But to start out with, I will just say that Zoom is a video conferencing platform that has become very popular during the COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom is used by classes, 12-step groups, churches, and many more organizations. In fact, in a time when many businesses are struggling, Zoom is actually doing quite well, with record growth in sales. According to an article by Diginomica, Zoom exited its COVID-stricken full fiscal year 2021 with revenues up 326% year-on-year to $2.65 billion. And just to emphasize the grip that the platform has had on our lives in recent times, its Q4 growth rate was even higher at 369%, hitting $833 million for the quarter. And for all of us who are not economists, don't worry, I'm not one either. That just means that they had huge growth in the past year. So let's take a moment now and think about accessibility. Google defines accessibility by saying, quote, everyone should be able to access and enjoy the web, end quote. Wikipedia defines accessibility as, quote, the ability to access and benefit from some system or entity. The concept focuses on enabling access for people with disabilities or special needs, or enabling access through the use of assistive technology. However, research and development in accessibility brings benefits to everyone. So essentially, accessibility refers to the design of products that are able to be used by all, including those with disabilities. And according to Zoom's own website, they try to make their software accessible to all. They do this through screen reader support, keyboard accessibility, multi-pinning, helpful for interpretation, and now closed captioning for all users. Zoom even goes so far as to say, quote, at Zoom we want to make human connection easy for everyone, everywhere. But the real question is, can they deliver? In a usability type of sense. So now, this is where we get to the meat and potatoes, or the kale and tofu if you don't eat meat. But I digress. Recently, headlines came out that Zoom made captioning services free for all accounts starting in the fall. However, many of the headlines did not specify that Zoom's competitors, such as Google Hangouts, had these captions, and some, but not many articles, did not mention how Zoom came to the decision to add captions. Two articles that do mention the icky way that captioning services came to be on Zoom are from Mother Jones and Gizmodo. So how did this happen? Well, Zoom got called out and was scared of being canceled, though I'm not sure we can cancel Zoom in the middle of a global pandemic. Anywho, a deaf reporter, Julia Matois, wrote a tweet that went pretty public, calling Zoom out. Note, this is after a class action lawsuit started in December 2020, pretty much demanding that Zoom pay people back who have to pay for captioning. Zoom then responded by allowing folks to request captioning services and making those requests free, but time-consuming. And as the article from Gizmodo by Julia Matois points out, quote, I should not have to pay for equal access because of my disability, which many hard of hearing and deaf people have been doing just to have adequate accommodations over Zoom. Zoom's past failure to realize the necessity of captions for hard of hearing and deaf community also makes me question how many disabled people are on their team. This quote from the article alone points out that accessibility is intrinsically tied to usability. So it literally took a class action lawsuit and public callouts to change Zoom. But this should not be the way that things are done. Accessibility should be part of the user experience process. People with disabilities should be included in conversations about usability. However, sadly, this is often not done, as we have learned from our class textbook. And this is not just in terms of technological usability either, but also in terms of usability of spaces and places, such as how long it took to get ramps on sidewalks in the United States. So yes, Zoom eventually took care of closed captioning. But what does this say about usability and who things are made usable for? If usability is only for non-disabled folks, then what is the point really? To make it easier for non-disabled people in a world that in many ways already caters to them? Perhaps the most pertinent and striking quote from Julia Matois is this, quote, "It should not have taken as long to get captions on Zoom as it does for people to get vaccines during a pandemic, but glad it happened," end quote. And perhaps most annoyingly is the way that Zoom is handling this quote-unquote situation by requiring folks to require live transcription to sign up and wait even longer for this service before it is released more broadly in the fall. So, all in all, what this does is it showcases that accessibility cannot be overlooked. Accessibility and usability are strictly intertwined. Besides, now more than ever, companies are under constant scrutiny and need to be aware of how their actions may reflect on them. This also makes it clear how accessibility impacts users and how important it is to make a system that is both accessible and user-friendly. And perhaps even more important is to include people with disabilities in your test pool when testing an app or website. So while it is important to provide an ideal number of users to test, the diversity of test subjects is something that can also not be overlooked. Moreover, leaving disabled users out of usability testing creates a gap in user methodology. If people do not know what is happening in a meeting, what is the point of features such as being able to add a mustache or a hat? So hopefully, if you have gained nothing else from this presentation, you are now able to recognize that accessibility is a usability issue, and vice versa. And usability and accessibility cannot be overlooked. So the next time you design an app or website, or help someone with usability features, remember to include people with disabilities in your testing pool, because without them, your app or website, or really whatever you are designing, will likely leave out a key demographic. Besides, everyone deserves an equally successful life experience. And to conclude, I want to thank you for watching my Usability in the News presentation on captioning on Zoom. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to assist you. I hope you have a great day, and thanks again.